I rise in opposition to the confirmation of Ms. Kagan to the Supreme Court, and I'd like to put this opposition in context with what's going on all around the country. All of us know, and we've seen on the news, and many of us have seen in person, that people are upset with what's happening in Washington. They're angry, they're fearful, they're frustrated at all the spending, the borrowing, the debt, the government takeovers. I keep hearing from people, what can we do? How can we stop it? Why is it happening? That's a question we need to keep asking here. Why is it happening? Why has this country, this Congress, many Congresses before, spent this country to the edge of bankruptcy and continue to spend week after week? Even though the President and the majority here are talking every week about the unsustainable debt, almost every week we're adding to that debt, adding new programs. It makes no sense. Our founders felt it very important that every member of Congress, the House and the Senate, the President, the Supreme Court, military officers, all took an oath of office to protect and defend the Constitution. That may seem perfunctory of just something we do as a part of history, but that was not its intent. Because the Constitution is a document that limits what the federal government can do. If anyone reads it seriously, it's pretty clear that its primary purpose is to limit what the federal government can do. It specifies a few things, such as protecting our nation, making sure that there is justice, making sure that we have the rule of law and the enforcement of those laws across all of our states. But it says a lot about what we can't do. The whole Bill of Rights is much about what the government can't do to take our freedoms. And the 10th Amendment itself says that whatever is not specified in the Constitution is left to the states and the people. Even though all of us take that oath of office, it seems to me, after being here a number of years, that just about everyone here sets aside that Bible when they put their hands down and completely forgets that they have just taken an oath to protect and defend a Constitution that limits what we can do. You know, last year, when we passed this health care bill, Obamacare, a reporter asked Speaker Nancy Pelosi, where in the Constitution did she find the authority to require people to buy a government-approved health insurance policy? All she could say is, "Are you serious?" In fact, if you talk about a limited constitutional government, as I often do here in the Senate, you're considered a radical, even though all of us take that oath of office. What we've turned into here, and the President has used this phrase a lot, is a yes, we can Congress. It doesn't matter what it is, what problem comes up all across the country. We can do it. We can fix it. Government has a solution to almost anything because we don't pay any attention to the Constitution. The Constitution is really a constitution of no, of what we can't do, and that's to protect us and to avoid where we are today, which is approaching a $14 trillion debt, which is about to destroy our whole country. Think about this. In the world's great bastion of freedom that we call America, our federal government owns the largest auto companies. It owns the largest insurance company. It owns the largest mortgage companies. It controls our education system. It just took over our healthcare system. It controls the whole energy sector and our transportation sector. And the rules and regulations and taxes that we put on business pretty much means mostly it controls all the business activity in our country. And when Congressman Pete Stark was asked last week in an interview that we've seen all over the internet, is there anything that the federal government can't do? He said no, because he had forgotten the constitutional oath of office. You know, what is the court's rule? As we think about Ms. Kagan, the Supreme Court, the confirmation process. What is the rule of the court? The intent is pretty clear that it was to watch over Congress, the executive branch, to make sure that we don't get outside the bounds of the Constitution. And if we do, the court is supposed to say, no, you can't, that that's unconstitutional. But the court over the years has pretty much thrown that responsibility out of the window. And back during FDR's days, in their interpretation of the Commerce Clause, it essentially given Congress and the White House unlimited ability to do almost anything that comes up, any whim that we have. And that's how we ended up with over $13 trillion in debt. I know that this overactive government is really important. This idea of a limited government is very important. When Ms. Kagan was in my office and I asked her, does the Constitution limit us from doing anything? And she really couldn't come up with a good answer. And it's pretty similar to her hearings when Senator Tom Coburn asked her if the Congress passed a law and the President signed it that every American had to eat their fruits and vegetables every day, would that be constitutional? Now, she said it would be a dumb law, but she would not say that that's unconstitutional. Now, friends, if this government can tell us what we have to eat, it can tell us anything. We can't claim to have any freedoms if this government can tell us what we have to eat. And it's essentially the same thing as telling us we have to buy a government-approved health insurance policy. We can't say no, but the Constitution is intended to make sure that we do. Ms. Kagan talked a lot about precedent, which are just previous court rulings. Not much about the Constitution being our standard. The problem with that is precedent is a lot like what we used to call the gossip game, some people call the telephone game, where you have a bunch of people sitting around a table. The person at the head of the table whispers a phrase to the person next to him, and they whisper to the person next to him, and it goes all around the room. And the whole funny part of the game is by the time it gets back to the person who started it, you can't even recognize the phrase. It has nothing to do with what was originally said. And that's exactly how precedent works, is once you throw the standard out, then the whole idea of a constitutional standard is out the window. And we have judges today that are making decisions by picking and choosing the precedent that agrees with their opinion rather than basing their decisions on true constitutional standards. I oppose Ms. Kagan's nomination because she, in my opinion, does not believe in constitutional limited government. She does not believe in the original intent of the Constitution, but more of President Obama's belief of more of a living Constitution. As President Obama said before he was elected, he sees the Constitution as a document of negative liberties because it tells the government what it can't do, but it doesn't tell us what we have to do. And it never was supposed to tell us what we have to do. But the progressives here in power in Washington and many of our judges believe that they need, through court rulings, to change that Constitution. And what has resulted in that is the government controlling more and more of our lives, spending and borrowing money that we don't have, and bringing our country to the brink of economic disaster. We cannot afford more yes we can judges in our country. We cannot afford more yes we can senators or congressmen, and we certainly can't afford another yes we can president. The decisions have been made about our economy over the last couple of years have brought our economy to its knees. This is no longer something we can blame on President Bush. In fact, the Democrats have been in control of policy making, economic policy, spending for 4 years now. This is not Bush's recession. This is the result of Democrat economic policies. This nomination will continue our move in the wrong direction. because it will put another person on the court who does not see their role as limiting what we can do here in Congress. And this Congress desperately needs a Supreme Court that tells Congress no when we step outside the bounds of the Constitution. Mr. President, I believe America is looking at Congress closer than they ever have before. They expect us to make the hard decisions, to stop the spending, to stop the waste, to stop the borrowing, to stop the debt, and to stop the government takeovers, and to stop our courts from taking our freedoms away. That's why I'm opposing Ms. Kagan to be a Supreme Court justice, and I encourage my colleagues to consider their vote and to vote no.